Who's got it better than us?
Nobody!
Herbert is being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a great...
My goal is not to break you. My goal is to make you harder to break.
Comes back. Number 6.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
Touchdown! 90-yard touchdown!
Off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Sets his speed, takes a shot downfield, has Knighton. Caught! Touchdown! Chargers!
Boys, grab your lunch boxes and go attack this day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
That was a grueling outing on Monday Night Football in Arizona as the Chargers go down 17-15 in what was nothing short of a frustrating night. The football gods smiting the Powder Blues, Lady Luck offering her assistance only to the Redbirds. Herbert eclipses season best efforts, but it simply was not enough. The Cards' run game ran riot over Jesse Minter's defense. That's plenty to get into. I'm Andy Prophet. I'm here with Jack Reed and Alistair Lloyd. Welcome to the Week 7 edition of the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. Lots to mull over after that effort and outcome, boys. Without a word said pre-show, over to you, Jack. Nice little tagline there.
Yes. Listen, as a Chargers fan, you have to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, with accepting the unacceptable. And we have accepted the unacceptable for a long time. And that's
we're starting the show with a teachable moment.
That's just part and parcel. No, I'm just full of it tonight. This was the first time that I saw a Harbaugh-led team get outplayed physically, which is unacceptable for a Harbaugh-led team. Jalen Reagor is an NFL-level player, supposedly. You make a great catch. The first thing you should do is transfer that ball to your left hand so you cover it from the defense so it doesn't fall out. Unacceptable. Tia Tart losing that, another little bit unacceptable. I'm not going to talk about the refs because too many people have talked about them. That's fine. You can't control that. What you can control is after that call, not letting James Conner go for 30 yards and get into field goal range. That is unacceptable. And it's not good enough. What was acceptable, though, was seeing Justin Herbert have his best game of the year. That is acceptable, but it's not acceptable that it happens in a game like this and you don't score a touchdown. 15 drives in a row now from last week where we haven't scored a touchdown. Justin Herbert throws for 350 yards to people that literally don't know how to catch. They're just ragamuffins, essentially. There's some good players in there, like Abe McConkey and things, beaten up. He throws for 350 yards, and we score 15 points off field goals. That is unacceptable.
Okay. My wife's expected to go into labour in the next few weeks, so I'm going to do some practice here, Jack. I want you to breathe. You can do this. You're a good boy. You're a good guy. You can do it, mate. Look, if you want to direct your heat anywhere, listeners, direct it at me. I'll tell you why. This is exactly what happened last week. I've done it again. I'm the anti-Midas touch again. Last week, I said, come on, bring me the darkness. Hello, darkness. And then I said, no, I should have realized this is the Harbaugh-led Chargers and that ain't going to happen with this culture. Well, what do we have? We have a dark night, Monday Night Football in Arizona. They're wearing their jet black dark uniform, the Cardinals. And we see, it's not Halloween yet, but we see some of the most ludicrous, unacceptable, unexpected Chargers behavior right from the get-go. You've referred to the key moments, Jack, and it is the first time this year where we are asking questions like, is this any different to McCoy and Lynn and Staley? And I think the answer is no, but to start the show at least, it's fun to be back in the darkness, Andy. We are back in that darkness. And what are we going to do? We're going to swim in it, or are you going to take us out into the light?
I think it's got to be a group effort to take us out into the light because you could hear a pin drop, especially down in Hobart with Big Jack. But look, you're right. It was an incredible effort by Justin Herbert, and the unfortunate thing is that God mode or super mode is not sufficient with what we've got. And I think the hardest thing is, and what I mean by with what we've got is obviously the receiving group. look, you can't really say that injuries are a big thing because we're missing Quentin Johnson and Hayden Hurst, Darius Davis. And look, yeah, okay. Jalen Reagor cops the fumble inside 2 yards. Horrible bounce through the end zone. Al, I'll let you get into your love for that rule later. But Jack, mate, I got to tell you, if he hangs on to that and goes into the end zone, you're nose to stomach on Jalen Reagor. You are all over it. For mine, unacceptable is a 320-pound T.A. Tart trying to run the ball back to the house.
Like this.
Like, mate,
arms aloft, brother.
Mate, he's...
Brother.
There was that. There's, the forced fumble on James Conner later in the game that gets recovered by Jack's boy, Trey McBride. It was just one of those ones where things just weren't falling our way. There was no luck to it. I was just saying to Al before, I was complaining during the game about the starting position that the Chargers had. We had one start at 45 yards, three at 30. The drives that we started within our own 15 were actually the most efficient or the most successful, let's say. 1 yard line at that last drive, 77 yards, bungle it heading into the red zone. Man, one trip to the red zone in how much of the ball did we have? 34 and a quarter minutes? Just crazy. There's like, I'm doing my best to get us out of it, but we've got to start somewhere, right?
Well, it's an element of skill level, right? When you don't, like, you left out Chark. So the team is missing.
Well, we haven't seen him. What is he? We haven't.
Exactly. A fair comment. And this is the risk you take when you do move on those dependable superstars, or call them whatever, experienced veteran receivers, and try to replace them with a motley crew of meh. And it was on display, man. There were a lot of drop catches, 7 drops, 2 from McConkey. Unfortunately, he had a habit of doing that in Georgia, particularly 2 years ago, and it started to rear its head again in the NFL. Guys not quite on the same page. The timing was off with a couple of throws to Simi Fehoko in particular. But I'm going to just put the spotlight on Greg Roman. I know they moved the ball through the air well, Jack, but I listened to his press conference last Thursday before this game. He went for 20 minutes and he was almost smug, saying, don't worry, guys. While Herbert's been injured, we haven't even scratched the surface. There's stuff in our play sheet that we really like in training camp. We haven't been able to get to any of it. We took all of these plays out of the Chiefs game. Now we're starting to see what this offense will look like because Herbert can move again. Well, if this was the first week where Herbert was fully healthy and you had all of your plans and designs available, what did you think, Jack, of the menu that was produced by Greg Roman?
Well, I think Andy hit the nail on the head, is that we looked best in long field situations when almost the pressure's off and Roman can just go, we need yards here, so let's go pass. I guess I can try and conceptualize why the red zone is such an issue, and perhaps, and this is just a theory, but perhaps with just a very, I guess, raw receiving core, young, when you've got a lot of space, you're starting at the 20 or the 10, you can win on athleticism and speed alone a lot of the time. And that's how a lot of these guys perhaps are getting their separation. But as the field condenses, that's when you need the precision. That's when you need the timing. That's when you need the skill. And
spot on.
And it looks like that at the moment it is not there whatsoever. You lose Mike Williams, you lose Keenan Allen, you lose Austin Eckler, who can wiggle free, and that's what's really happening. And I don't think Roman's got a answer for that. He doesn't know how to uncork it. He doesn't know how to scheme it, which is a little bit worrying. I said to you privately that I'm going to wait until the end of the year to have a call on Greg Roman. So I'm not gonna say anything too much. But this was Herbert God mode. We haven't seen this for a while. And Andy, you said it well, is that we still couldn't get over the line. Just some numbers that worry me as well. We are 31st per PFF per run grade in the NFL, and our run blocking is 19th. Our passing grade is 14th and our pass blocking is 24th. So I don't know how well you know World War One, listeners, but that's kind of in between the trenches. And I'm talking about in between the French and the German trenches. We're in no man's land. That doesn't say anything to me whatsoever. There is not one ranking there through 7 or 6 games that I go, oh yeah, at least we're clearly identifiable there. Little bit worrisome for mine.
I like the analogy because, like the Battle of the Somme, we're losing a lot of men. They're dropping like flies. And the people who have been called up to try and fill the gap ain't doing it. And Jack, you're right. Precision is key in the end zone. We don't have a red zone identity on offense. 31st in red zone scoring. So only 38.5% of trips to the red zone result in touchdowns. It's about as bad as you can get, really. Andy, what about some things that maybe we've liked from the offensive performance this week? I know we're annoyed in some respects, but anything to take away that could predict well for the future?
Yeah, well, I think, we talk about a bunch of nobodies that Herbert's throwing to, but it's pretty impressive to have 7 different receivers with catches of 14 yards or more, right? I thought, and we can get into this a little bit more, but I thought Jonathan Gannon coached very well. So to be able to stymie the running attack is one thing, but it is really positive that, there's a lot of trust in Justin Herbert, as there should be, of course, but he's throwing from the opposite hash, speed balls out wide, and he's putting them in tiny little thimble-sized buckets. Like, incredible. Good to see Stone Smart get out there, make a great catch. Unfortunate on that drop, but, it was close. McConkey got back into the game after a sluggish start. Palmer was there a little bit. But a big shout out to Will Dissly, to be honest. Targeted 11 times, 8 catches, 81 yards. I know it all means nothing really in the scheme of the result, but they're good things. Keep the helmet on him. Shock and lid. Shock and lid.
Did I not say that he's going to be Herbert's number 1 target and that he might have the most catches of the team? I reckon I may have. Yeah,
you said Disley,
and I was shot down for that. But I'm looking there, going, "Thank you very much."
You're laughed out of the building, Kev.
It's a weird hill to die on.
Hey.
Yeah, look.
But I was going to say a couple of things that were good about the offense. I thought play action was extremely effective. They went 10 of 10, 167
Why not use
yards.
it more? Why not use it more?
Best deep passing performance of the season, 4 of 6, 121 yards. I thought the pass protection was pretty good as well. I mean, it did drop away in the second half, I think. But you don't pass for 350 yards if the pass protection is diabolical. It felt like there were a number of drives where Herbert was standing there tall, just looking downfield. So you'd think that maybe this was a bit of an anomaly because of some of the weird things that we've mentioned, a random fumble out of bounds, some drops, some unlucky, perhaps, elements. Maybe this is not so doom and gloom. It's a gut-wrenching loss, but maybe this is a great sign that Herbert has had clearly his best game of the year, following up from last week, which until last week was his best game of the year.
Yeah, it's an improve, week by week, and it's good to see that he's healthy, he's back. And look, we can only hope, and I think there will be fair judgment on Greg Roman this week if we're more than likely going to get Quentin Johnson back if the playbook is not expanded and we're not seeing, building on the passing game and improvement. And we'll get into the Saints defense as we look towards next week in a little bit. But there's a real opportunity to sort of sway the ledger back in our favor as far as the run game goes. So, like you say, it's a gut-wrenching loss, but it's not all doom and gloom.
I was going to say, and you say that, and that the run game, might improve. This is one of the worst defenses in the NFL we've just played against. And
I'm just trying to put a positive spin on it.
I understand, but the run game comes down to, and coaches say this all the time, is does the offensive line and do you have the will? Do you have the nastiness within you to assert dominance on the player opposite you? And I've said this for a couple of weeks now. I'm not sure if that's the identity of the offensive line. I just don't think it is. Slater and Alt are fantastic technicians. I wouldn't call them angry or grunty. I wouldn't call them road graders. They can do a job. Andy, you sorry if I jumped on your toes there, but Zion Johnson had probably one of his better games. I thought that was probably his better games of the year. But the interior with Bozeman and Pipkins, it just isn't tough enough. And that's a big thing to say. I just don't think it's tough enough to execute what Greg Roman wants, which is that mauling. It was in the first couple of weeks, but ever since we faced the Steelers, who are a proper road grading unit, it's kind of dropped off a bit. I still like what J.K. Dobbins does, and he gets yards when other backs would lose too. I still think he runs with pop and power. The gaps just aren't there, and I just don't know if the attitude is there fully in that interior offensive line group or the offensive line as a whole.
The most damning stat on that is they are 26th in yards per attempt running the ball, 4 yards per attempt, despite having the 6th most attempts. It's not what you want. If you're gonna be forcing that and saying this is who we are, you'd better be good at it. Otherwise, all you're doing is being inefficient. And this is the 3rd week of the last 4. I think that they have had fewer than 65 rushing yards. They did all right against the Broncos, but Steelers, Chiefs, Cardinals, not working, boys. All right, well, Jack, it sounds like maybe you think there are some personnel problems along the line and at the skill receiver positions. Well, what do you reckon? There's a trade deadline coming up in a few weeks. You may have taken control of the X account and left a little comment on one stage during the game yesterday.
Just a little tidbit.
Should we be active?
At the wide receiver position, yes, because I think there's value to be found. No one's going to give up a quality guard or a center at this time of the year when I guess win-loss records are still kind of, teams are within shots of things. I even looked at some of the free agents coming in the offensive line in 2025. The crop is not that good either. There are no big names that really stuck out to me. But maybe you just go, and unfortunately fans are going to hate this, but maybe you have to go interior offensive line in the draft in 2025 and just make do with what we've got at the moment. Zach Fraser would have been great. He's having a great year for Pittsburgh. But listen, the name on everyone's lips is obviously Mike Williams. He's out of favor at New York. He has that ex-receiver experience. How complex is Roman's scheme that he can come in and make an impact? To me, Roman doesn't run a particularly difficult wide receiver scheme to get a hold of. But other than that, and even the wide receiver crop in 2025 free agents, you've got Godwin, who's out for the rest of the year. T. Higgins is sitting there. I don't know if T. Higgins is your big number one receiver that you pay 25 mil, 30 mil a year. He's gonna be the guy. So it's an interesting one, and I haven't gotten anywhere near draft prep yet, but I did do some stuff talking with Kyle and Ryan today and going, interesting wide receivers. There's in the current crop, there's maybe 6 in the top 50 or 60 from some of the boards that I was looking at. So not too sure how strong that class is. It's going to be an interesting. Chef Ortiz is going to have to get some ingredients and make the pie. Let's hope it tastes nice.
Good gear. All right, so offense gave us the shits on the one hand. On the other, Herbert played great. No worries. Just another Sunday for the Chargers or a Monday. All right, onto the defense. Where do we want to start? Maybe I'll start. Jack, you mentioned this a few weeks ago. I thought we'd turn the corner. Not getting enough pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah.
Again, sorry, another anti-Midas touch. Didn't I say last week, are we even missing Joey Bosa? I think those words emanated from my mouth. Tooley and Dupree played like shite.
Well, Alistair, I'll throw a question to you then, because I've actually written these numbers down here. So, week 1, 36% pressure rate, win. Week 2, 14% pressure rate, win. Week 3, 11% loss. Week 4, which is the anomaly, 41% pressure. That's a loss against the Chiefs. Last week, 43%, which was our highest for the year. That was a win. But this time against average, one of the bottom 10 offensive lines, 19% loss. Why are we seeing such up and down with these numbers?
Because I think it's hard to get pressure on certain mobile quarterbacks. That is my guess. I think it does make a difference. Some of those quarterbacks you mentioned, a little more elusive, and Justin Fields one of them, and certainly Kyler is one of them. And obviously the play we have in mind is the poor angle from Junior Colson and just scampering away for the touchdown. Took some really dumb angles, I thought, as well. Bud Dupree a few times was caught pushing too far downfield and allowing that escape lane instead of preserving the pocket as you would want. You expect better from a veteran. Tooley, 4 missed tackles in this game. Just struggled with James Conner in particular.
Yeah.
And boy, wasn't he good. I mean, he's probably a top 5 running back in the league. He's tough. He might be the kind of guy that would fit the Chargers scheme the way we want to run the ball, because Andy, we just couldn't stop the guy time and time again.
Yeah, brutal. The tackling angle, or the angles, the tackling was, they're 5 of the 5 pillars of Jesse Minter's defense. Those 2 are crucial ones, and they were abject failures.
The Jenga tower came crushing down on that 5 pillars.
Yeah, they've just gone, pull out the left one, pull out the middle one, topple she goes. Deion Henley, 4 missed tackles as well. I think, look, Gilman had 3 missed tackles, but I've got a big thing about Joey Bosa, because I disagreed when we said last week, are we missing him? Bud Dupree showed a complete lack of any leadership or experience by the play that you pointed out, Al. And I think Tooley is now starting to feel a bit of pressure coming off a pretty hot rookie season.
So for more blues.
Yeah, without Joey there, Khalil Mack was at the top of my list for talking about the defense, because we always joke about, we just expect an awesome game, and he started on fire. Had a couple of batted passes, led to that Tart pick. But it's just not getting any help or assistance or consistency on the opposite side of the line. And it's making it very easy for offensive coordinators to just go away from Mac. And you see him, he's running like a madman. Like he was the closest after Junior Colson whiffed on that 44-yard Murray scramble. Mac was the closest to him. He's just given it everything he's got. The guy's 31, 32. Help him out. Can't do this. We need him for as long as we can.
Kyler got hit one time. We hit Kyler one time the whole game. It was that Denzel Perryman hit, and it almost took him out. One time.
I was going to say, Andy, what's your read on Junior Colson? Because he played the 3rd most snaps. He played 31 snaps. He had the highest tackling grade per PFF, weirdly enough, but was pretty horrendous everywhere else. Did we go a little bit too early on him, thinking that he's going to be the heartbeat of this defense, whereas it kind of looks like Deion Henley and Perryman are kind of the guys?
Look, I think he's had a pretty interrupted preseason, an interrupted start to his professional career. We were high on it because we thought he's coming straight out of Jesse Minter's college defense. So there's that connection, there's that understanding, all those sort of things. But look, it's 7 games, not even 7 games, because he's played maybe 4.
He's played 4, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's way too early to call. But I did say to Al while we were watching the game, I said, you see what Chris Jenkins been doing? Did we take the right Wolverine defensive player?
Gosh.
And look, the short answer to that is not much. But it was just that miss was just... I'm hoping that it's a big learning curve for him to...
Well, Andy, while you're in the hot seat, let me double down on it with a follow-up question. So to Jack's point, in terms of the snaps that the linebackers are playing, last week it was Henley 43, Colson 32, Perryman 22. This week it was Henley 46, Perryman 33, Colson 31. Since we've started working Colson into that rotation, can you really say it's made our defense better? For next week against the Saints, do you think you start... What are you doing if you're the coach? You go, no. Let fewer snaps for Colson, or do you need to blood him by playing him?
I think you can blood him by playing more special teams and getting used to the pace of the game, to be honest with you, even with Nick Neiman back in the team. I would like to see more Perryman and Henley. I think more consistency if Bosa's not up. Christian Fulton played 7 snaps. Even though he thought he shouldn't have. But, consistency. There were still 19 players who rotated through the defense. And even if that isn't a lot, it's starting to to show? Has Minter's defense been figured out, or are we just not being able to execute what we thought was a pretty simple kind of setup for him?
No, like I still think, don't get me wrong, the defense has still not given up more than 20 points in a single game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty incredible. So 17 points. On balance, I was pretty happy with how they defended the pass. But Jack, what do you think? Maybe the one weakness at the moment is this personnel usage. So let me know what you think. But Molden was taken off the field a bit. He just had 14 snaps to Jasir Taylor's 16. We had Steele and Jasir on the field at the same time. You know, the rotation of the D-line. What do you think about utilization for Jesse Minter at the moment?
Yeah. Well, I think Jesse Minter was hoping and praying that Christian Fulton could go because he seems to be the linch. He seems to, weirdly enough, he's the linchpin to this defense. When Christian Fulton plays, the coverage looks a whole lot better. And
what was the point of playing him 10 snaps? Like, what was the point of that?
Unless it was something, listen, we can try and let's see if he can go. Maybe you're playing funny buggers and you're thinking that, you know, we'll name Fulton because they've probably prepared for him, so they might not throw to that side of the field, etc., etc. I mean, I don't know how deep those games play, but yeah, it's funnily enough because when Gilman was out, we coped all right with Molden there. When Derwin was out, Molden was in. It was actually not too bad. But there, this probably, I think it was a bit of a Cam Hart and Tahib Steele, not necessarily come to earth game because I thought coverage on Harrison was exceptional. He looked a little bit banged up. He didn't look like he was his full self. But Trey McBride did have his way with whoever was on him at the time. I mean, he's an elite, as I mentioned last week. In terms of the rotation across the defensive line, I still think Perna Ford is being very serviceable. Tia Tart, even though he made that big mistake, I still don't mind it. It's just that second level taking Connor. Connor just slammed through the lines with power. Talk about intent and attitude. It just feels like the Cardinals brought that, and that was the difference in this game. That's all I can put it down to, is that they just had more will. And sometimes you just got to take the loss when teams just have more will than you.
Andy, what did you think building on that? And I agree. It was for a team who want to develop this character of being very difficult to beat and tough. They out-physicaled us, to use an Americanism.
Whatever the commentator said during the game, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he said something ridiculous, didn't he, Dan Orlovsky? What did you think of Cam Hart, Andy? This was now his second full-time game. He was definitely in the action for a lot of the night. What did you make of his performance?
Pretty good. He whiffed on a tackle early, just went straight at him and missed. But I thought he was pretty serviceable on Marv Harrison when he manned up with him.
Oh, and him and McBride were going after each other the entire night. Did you see that?
Yeah, loved it. Look, I don't know. I think there's a real blooding the rookie cornerbacks. I think they played 54 and 53 of the 57 defensive snaps. But I'm not seeing him get torched or anything like that. And there was potential for him to do so. You know, he kept the Cards to 160 passing yards. So
2 penalties on him, 1 DPI, 1 unnecessary roughness.
Yeah, they're experienced things. I can, when I first watched on the first angle of the unnecessary roughness, I teed off. It's a good thing your wife
We use some
wasn't.
words that start with F and also C at a certain point. Yeah.
Yeah. Father Christmas. There's a lot of Father Christmases going on in your living room last night. When I watched the reverse angle, so the shot across the field, it was just his intentions were to hit him. Believed he still had possession of the ball. As Harrison came down, the shoulders slipped and it was helmet to helmet. So it was there. I thought the holding was there as well. Yeah, but Cleet Blakeman, man, he's got to be the biggest Father Christmas in the in the refereeing group. They both were there. The other one was a bit careless. That holding, DPI, whatever you want to call it, both were there. It was just unfortunate that Jack, you alluded to that 30-yard rush. I believe that followed up from that penalty, put them into kill the game sort of victory formation, if you will. I was just praying. I was like, for the luck that we've had for this game, can we just get a blocked field goal? Can we just have something? But no, wanted to be.
I was going to say, Al, that this was one of the most animated we've seen Harbaugh on the sideline for a while. This is going back to San Francisco days, when he's sort of pulling the Johnny McEnroe, and he walked like he was essentially in the middle of the hash marks at one point, and the referees were sort of pushing him off. And he's, oh, where am I? I don't know where I am. Sort of going a little bit geriatric. Do you think that maybe that might have brushed off a little bit? Because after that DPI that happened, 2 bad calls, Harbaugh clearly incensed, the defense then whiffs on the corner. Is that a little crack in the system? Is there anything to read from that?
I don't like to buy into that kind of stuff. I know others might differ. I thought he was just testing out the old sinus rhythm now that he's seen the cardiologist, just really checking that it's still okay, that he still has the heart of an athlete. But look, it was hardly calm and composed and measured, that's for sure. And come on, it was overboard where he's actually wandering so far out onto the field. They're having to remind him he's not a player anymore. Get back, coach, onto the other side.
That's right.
And look, if you want to build this case, we have one example of Harbaugh going off the boil, and then, as you said, on the very next play, we give up that long drive into a field goal. So 1-from-1, causation or correlation, we'll watch this. Anything left to discuss about this game, boys, before we hand out some awards? Jack wants to keep going.
Yeah,
Jack's been fired up. All right. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. No. We're forgetting the one biggest positive out of all of this, and that's Cameron Dicker. Sorry. Like the guys kicked 15 points. Honestly, that's what you don't want from a team. But that guy's becoming. I'm not going to say anything because you know what? Next week he's going to miss a field goal to win. I'm not going to say anything. Great performance from Cameron Dicker.
Did.
There's a lot of no. I didn't say. I was about to say he's automatic. I just did. Oh, there we go. Unfortunate. We're going to lose next week. No. Positive thinking. Breathe.
Well, we're going to see a lot more of him because it can be 4th and 3. Down 5 points in the fourth quarter with 12 minutes remaining, and Harbaugh will just send out Dicker to go make the margin 2 points instead of going for a touchdown. So. Okay,
well, Alistair, then that call, the play call to Fahoko, and then Herbert sails it over his head. What was your read on that? Because I guess we're talking about special teams and coaching. That was one thing I'm going. This is 4 down territory. Surely. Did you like that? Because there have been commentators that have said it was a pretty conservative kind of play call, in general.
It was actually the previous drive I'm talking about where we're down by 5 and we decided to go the field goal to make it down by 2. I
understand that.
But then on the final drive, we did go for the 4th down, converted a 4th and 1, and then they send, it's cover 0. We go 1-on-1 on the outside, throws it up. I'm not sold he was really running a proper stop and go on that. So I kind of understand why the refs said it was uncatchable. It didn't look like they're on the same page. I know Harbaugh almost had an aneurysm, but this is just that not having the chemistry with a guy and that's why if that's Mike Williams, we're having a different conversation, I dare say, because he's pushing up field and maybe the flag stays.
Yeah, but throwing to Simi for Hoko in that situation, and Herbert, where does the blame lay?
Well, there are only a couple rules, right? If the defense sends 0, you're hot. They're bringing more than you can defend. So teams will have 1 or 2 or 3 different options. One is quick dump to a running back, quick screen to a wide receiver, or what Jordan Love likes to do and what Herbert did here. Okay, you're sending 0, back a bit, send one of your receivers deep, and you've got a 1-on-1 shot, and you hope you hit him. So we went with that, and we did it to a friggin' undrafted free agent who's been with the team for less than a year. No good.
Death taxes and cover 0 blitz. Death taxes, cover 0 blitz. Losers, charges, games. Anyway.
Yeah. A lot more than that, but hey. All right, onto the awards, Al. You first, mate.
I've got no surprises. We've discussed him. I'm giving it to Junior Colson. Like you, it was at the start because he knows the defense, and I'm not so harsh that I'll have a go at someone who does something wrong for the first time, unlike Jack with Jalen Reagor. With Junior Colson...
It's not the first time.
True, different teams. Last week, Colson took one really bad angle on Bo Nix, And that should have been the learning moment on, you're too slow to get to your drop zone in coverage, and then you took a poor angle. He did it again, and he did it against the most dangerous quarterback in the NFL. You've got to be better than that when he's to your side of the field. Junior Colson, and you might deserve a bit of time in the doghouse, some fewer snaps next week for you, sir.
Yep. I was hoping you wouldn't round out the game analysis by touching on this man, because 15 consecutive drives, as we said at the top of the show, without a touchdown. That's a big nah. But tying the Chargers' all-time longest field goal, going 5 from 5, all the boots off your foot. You give the team hope. And as Harbaugh said in his post-game presser, he just loves Cam Dicker. There's so much trust in him. 59 yards, because if you turn it over, the ball's at the 49. I love you, Cam Dicker. Stay golden. Yeah!
Love it. Okay. I guess it's my teachable moment. Have either of you heard of Project Habakkuk? Probably haven't. But did you know that during World War II, the British built a massive aircraft carrier out of ice? Well, technically it was a special mixture of ice and wood pulp called pykrete. The idea was to create a virtually unsinkable floating fortress that could withstand torpedo attacks and house planes. They even started building a prototype in a Canadian lake, and it was so strong that when they tested it by shooting it, the bullets ricocheted off. But in the end, the project was abandoned because the war ended before they could fully develop it. So what does this have to do with Justin Herbert? Fuck all, really. I thought it was just a really interesting sort of point. Except sometimes, like the British with their ice ships, we try to create amazing solutions in strange situations. Herbert's game was like that, an incredible display of ability and ingenuity thrown together with whatever resources he had at his disposal, even if it was as weird as an aircraft ice carrier. I'm thinking Simi Fehoko catching balls. It worked for the moment, but we all know you can only push the limits of what's possible for so long before you have to figure out a more solid plan. That's my teachable moment. Class dismissed.
Right on and on to... Sorry.
No, I was going to say, perhaps the people in charge of that project were the same people like Aldous Huxley, just testing LSD out for the same time. And some of those people might be in the box with Greg Roman, based on some of the play calling. So just let it rip, Herbert.
TDU crew, Jack's had 3 sips of beer and he's dropping F-bombs left, right and centre. This is a great day for the show. I'm excited.
That teachable moment was brought to you by Cascade Lager.
Never heard of it? I didn't think so.
3.7%, isn't it?
0-0. All right, on to week 8. We're up against the Saints. The injury bug has hit, and it is hurting the fast-starting Saints. Looking like the big surprise team of the season after the 2-0 hot start. The hot air balloon certainly come crashing back down to earth against the Denver team that had its way with a porous offensive line, piling 30 pressures and 6 sacks in a 33-10 win. Now sitting at 2-5, this matchup, of which the Chargers go in 7.5-point favourites, is crucial to get the Bolt season back on track. And just a quick one before we head into the opening headlines. Not sure about Derek Carr playing. Dennis Allen seems to think that the week after is more likely. But without Carr, the Saints have scored 37 points and have 84 scored against them. So the writing's on the wall on a 5-loss slip. Jack, your first headline.
It's just on that, mate. And my first headline is, who's driving this rattling car in New Orleans? Because, I think the game is different with Derek Carr under center with Spencer Rattler there. Listen, I've actually watched him and I didn't think he looked out of place. He's made some pretty critical errors, but gosh, I mean, he's been thrust into an offense that he probably wasn't expecting. So there's so I'm going to say it really depends. If Rattler's playing, I'll be looking forward to it. If Carr's playing, I'll be a little more nervous.
My headline, TDU crew, is this is a game at the moment, especially on the offensive line, is dreams versus reality. The reality for the Saints is something that would be concocted by Christopher Nolan. So they've got Fuanga there, rookie at offensive tackle. They wanted to have Lucas Patrick at left guard. He got injured, so it was Kyle Hergel. He got injured, so it's Nick Saldivieri. The center, they want Eric McCoy, who's one of the best in the league. It's actually Connor McGovern. because McCoy's injured. The right guard, it should be Cesar Ruiz, good player. Nope, he's injured. It's Landon Young. Right tackle, one of the best, Ryan Ramczyk. Nope, out for the season. It's Trevor Penning. Geez, we complain about injuries, man. These guys got the bug.
Big time. I had a rattler one as well. But will the real Derwin James please stand up? Obviously a different position, but Cody Barton had a day out last week. Incredible fumble recovery for a touchdown. And I'll throw in a little bit of my other headline because cue the Benny Hill music. Sometimes Spencer Rattler's, fumbles made him look a little like he put mayonnaise in his coffee, and there was a bit of Will Levis about him. It is time Derwin James stepped up and stamped his mark on a game of football. We called for it last week. This is the week. Time to go Derwin.
My other headline, and it was, do we want latter more or latter little? He's been having a really good season. He's a top 20.
The guy is drunk.
I really like Marshawn Lattimore. I thought he was one of the top targets to actually come to the Chargers a season or so ago. It would have been nice. There were rumours about him coming along. Listen, the defense here isn't too bad, and I've been watching Kool-Aid McKinstry pretty closely as well. And he's been having, for a rookie, having a fairly serviceable year. So let's just watch those corners and see what happens.
You might be drunk on beer, Jack. I'm drunk on Kool-Aid. He was my guy during the draft class. Paulson Adebo has 3 picks, and then now he's out for the year with a broken femur, I think.
Yeah.
Leg or something. So they've got Alontae Taylor. They got Kool-Aid McKinstry. Of course, they've got Lattimore. It's probably one of the only strengths they can rely on at the minute. And even then, they're still giving up so much. Like, they're 32nd in total yards allowed, 27th in points allowed, 31st in rush yards per attempt. Is this sounding familiar, boys? It's almost sounding like our preview of Monday Night Football last week, so I don't want to say too much. Moving on to some keys to victory. I started on the O-line. I'm going to go back to the O-line. We like Talize Fuanga, but he allowed 7 pressures last week, including 3 sacks against the Broncos. And on the other side of him, Trevor Penning allowed 8 pressures, and one of those being a sack. The Broncos got to Rattler 30 times. So come on, if you need some sort of a cure for your impotent pass rush, this is the week, boys. This is the week.
Yeah. Even with Alvin Kamara in the team, the Saints have only generated 102 rushing yards before contact over the last 3 weeks, as opposed to the 393 they were able to generate in the first 4. On the other side of the ball, their opponents in those 3 weeks have been able to create rushing lanes tallying 362 yards before contact, opposed to the 246 that they were allowing in the first 4 weeks of the season.
Kamara coming or Kamara going? Who knows? Where's he going to end up? Maybe he's going to be one of these players at the trade deadline that ends up somewhere else.
You've missed the news, drunk man.
Has he
Kamara
gone? Has
signed
he?
a 2-year contract extension worth $24.5 million to stay
There
at
you
the
go.
Saints.
I was
Yes.
too busy doing my job, clearly. The one thing I will say,
jokes, were you?
keys to victory. This guy's Nate Shepherd and Brian Brzee. They're sort of really struggling in terms of their interior of their defensive line. This is a match where Bozeman, Pipkins, and Johnson should impose their will, please. I'd like to see some nastiness on the interior line.
Yeah, their pass rush, no good. Carl Granderson might be the best. Otherwise, and I heard someone say this online, I wish I could attribute it to them, but ever since Rashawn Slater faced Chase Young in Rashawn Slater's debut, Chase Young's been nowhere. He's been horrible. So I think moving on, boys, to our score prediction. I know we feel bad about what happened last night, but this is a team that really, if Carr doesn't play, they're either going to go with Rattler or Hayner. I don't know which is better from our perspective. Hayner gets it out quicker. Rattler's more dangerous, but gives you more opportunities with turnover-worthy stuff. This really should be a win, shouldn't it? I'm going to trust that this week was an aberration and that Chargers at home against the Saints will find a way to get to 4-3. My result prediction is Chargers 23, Saints 17. Andy, what say you?
Yeah, I just want to touch on, you mentioned his name before. Slot corner Alontae Taylor has given up 337 yards on 38 receptions, 195 yak. So with the benefit of a poor pass rush, feed McConkey, trust his hands, could be a real game for him. I said the line was 7.5, and God, after last night, I'd be a fool to take it, but I'm going to do it. I've had a hot hand on the punt this year. Should the Saints get their QB back with Olave returning from concussion, yeah, look, we'll see. But our passing game's heating up, and this is a real opportunity for the Bolts to run it down the throat of New Orleans as well. So good chance for a double-headed offensive attack, and I trust that, the defense didn't fail. They didn't win, but we hold them to 13 points, Chargers 27.
I'm going 18-17, and Dicker's kicking 6 field goals to win.
You're a fuckwit.
There you go.
Come on. And
You're a fucking idiot.
How many rush yards for J.K. Dobbins this week? You're a bit off with 180 last week and the 3 touchdowns, Athea. We need better from you, brother. Come on. This week, J.K. Dobbins, you got a chance. Bring it home. Let's get a dub.
There we go. TDU boys go 3-0 against the Saints. Let's finish off with around the NFL headline, Jack.
Am I going to steal anything if we're going to talk about what happened with the Cleveland Browns?
Oh, no, go for it. All yours.
Go for it.
We don't want to touch that shit.
Funny thing about my Achilles is...
I was just going to keep it short and sweet. I shared a video with the two guys. Maybe listeners, some of you have seen it, of Jameis Winston talking very passionately about his compatriot going down with a ripped Achilles. It was interesting. Do you ever want to celebrate a player who injures themselves? I think deep in my heart, you don't. But it was an interesting reaction that occurred. And in some ways, maybe it's actually for the best for the Browns, is that they can actually get some other people in there. They don't feel beholden to this guy. Who knows what happens to Deshaun Watson's career now? It's probably going in terms of one of the worst signings ever, if not the worst signing ever in almost all of professional sport, maybe close to, for the money with guaranteed. You're sort of going into those areas, I think. So I know a couple of Browns fans just offhandedly that I've met living in Hobart, and they were very happy because they've been in the doldrums for a long time now. So, I love the Browns defense. Their organization I have some questions about, but that was sort of one of the biggest talking points of this weekend. That was what I was watching very closely.
If you're a believer in karmic justice, the evidence seems to be fairly compelling. That there
Isn't karmic justice a massage parlor name? That's what it sounds like.
You'd know, mate. All right, my headline. My headline. Not even a headline. Sorry, just something I want to talk about. I thought the game between the Lions and the Vikings is, if not number one, in the top 3 of best games of the season. That's what the NFL is all about. Great coordinators on both sides of the ball, going to and fro, showcasing their wit. And we had Brian Flores, Ben Johnson, Kevin O'Connell looked really good. And I thought it really bolstered the Lions, in my estimation, to see their coaching staff's ability to overcome the departure of Aiden Hutchinson and still find a way to dig deep. And who was it, boys? A guy we loved coming out of Alabama, Brian Branch, made play after play in that game. And on the other side, Ben Johnson continues to show himself to be, if not the second best OC in the league, definitely the first. And Jared Goff looks like an absolute gun. So go Lions, definitely my favourite team in the NFC.
Here, yeah. I would have loved to have jumped and talked on them last week. We didn't get to it. Just to leapfrog Al's point, we're talking about Cleveland heartbreak. Look what's happened to Baker Mayfield. He goes to Tampa Bay after a little hiccup in Carolina, where he actually made them seem, respectable, I guess. This is the test. I loved watching him under Dave Canales last year. More so, I think, under Liam Cohen. He's hitting his straps. But you've just lost Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And they combined for about 900 yards of your 1,800 passing so far this year. About 40% of your targets and completions, and more than half of your touchdowns. The race, it's a two-dog race in the NFC South. And, you know, the Falcons hiccuped against the Seahawks, but that offense is starting to gel a bit. This really will hurt Tampa Bay's chances of going 4 in a row in the lowly South Division. So, maybe Cleveland fans have just had an absolute weekend. They've got rid of that, and now there's Juju on Baker Mayfield. Feel bad. Chris Godwin will go into free agency coming off ankle surgery, and it was a great day for NFL memes because some of the barbecue-related meat falling off the bone resembling Mike Evans' hamstring. Not bad content. I've got a soft spot for that kind of gear. All right, guys. Well, what?
Each of their own, mate.
I'm going to take a week off next week. I'm taking my little family overseas for a little holiday, so you'll be stuck with these two idiots on the show following the Saints game. Jack, stay off the beer or the gin or the water or whatever you're drinking.
Hey, it's entertainment, right?
I'll look after him. It's been real. Hopefully the Chargers can get the dub against the Saints. I'll be eagerly trying to find a sports bar in Bali that shows the game, although my Google searches have not come up positively. So it'll be what it'll be. I'll miss you all, but bolt up.
Enjoy your holiday, brother.
Will do.
Enjoy.
Take it easy, fellas. See you guys. See you next time.
Hey.
Toodaloo.
Backpedals looking, firing. He's got Floyd turning. Got it! Zigzag, 10, 5, high step, touchdown! San Diego!
Woo! Good night! Good night to all!